Let's Talk to Animals. My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm an animal sensitive and intuitive, aka an animal communicator and a Reiki master practitioner here at animallovelanguages.com. Normally, my nearly 24-year-old feathered sidekick Pearl Cutts would be with me. He's in the next room. He's supposed to be sleeping. Maybe you can hear a little chirp in the background. I am welcoming Ezekiel Ong tonight from animalcommunications.sg, all the way from Singapore, and we have a 12-hour time difference on our hands. And my little birdie's bedtime is 7 p.m. sharp, if not earlier. So he's joining us in spirit from the next room. Here on Let's Talk to Animals, if you're just joining us for the first time, our goal is twofold. One, we want to demystify de-woo animal communication. What is it? How does it happen? Who can do it? How can you learn? And why is it worth taking seriously? And twofold, my personal passion is to help each human who's interested to connect to other humans who are already practicing and doing this work. Who do you resonate with? How can you get started? Who would you like to study with, or just even to meet and get to know, to build a community of personal stories so that we can all plug in and participate in what is an amazing ongoing conversation that's happening all around us. And here for season 3, we're really also talking about how to use animal communication in really practical ways to help animals have the best quality of life. And often that involves mentoring the humans in the mix, you, me, the folks that we serve, whether you're interested in volunteering with a rescue or a charity, or you have animals in your family and you want to know what's going on with them, or you want to help other humans and their animals. Ezekiel today is you've got it. We were just chatting before he hit record. You've got it all going on. You
Mhm.
really and I love you were just sharing with me how I think we're two kindred spirits, and that we're really passionate about wanting to open up the floodgates of interspecies communication and really let folks know that this is not something that's reserved for a special few who are born gifted. This is an innate ability that we can all tap into. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. First of all, I want to stop talking because people aren't tuning in to listen to me. And second of all, I want to invite you, Ezekiel, to introduce yourself. Just share how you came to this work. I know you have a special mentor that has been a big influence in your life, and just kind of share how things have unfolded for you.
All right. Thank you, Shannon, for having me on the show. Okay, so hello, everybody. My name is Ezekiel. I'm an animal communicator that is based here in Singapore. So Singapore is part of Asia. Yeah, it's a very small little dot on the world map. Okay, so my name is Ezekiel. So I've been doing animal communication for about 8 to 9 years. Yeah, and how I started this journey is also very interesting because what happened was I have a pet that passed away. And, I was in my grieving moments and I was like looking for answers. I have lots of questions flooding me with the intense emotions. Questions like, how is my pet doing? Is she well? Where is she now? Who is she with? So many questions. And I began my search for answers. I start to find questions in religious texts. I begin to ask people, hey, where do animals go? And
Mm.
somehow, I can't resonate with a lot of the answers that they are sharing with me. You know? So I was like Googling, and one day I found this lady, which is my mentor, Rosina. So she was talking about rainbow bridge and how animals, after they pass on, they'll go to this place called the Rainbow Bridge, right? So when I hear that for the first time, it really resonated very well with me. I felt this peace, this aha moments, like, that makes a lot of sense. And I say, hey, who is this person? I need to learn from her how to do what she do. And I went for her course, and then the rest is history. Yeah,
That's
and then I've been
amazing.
doing it for the last 8 to 9 years, and we have been teaching, right? teaching people how to do it as well. And yeah, it's really a journey, so much learning, having like-minded people, growing together, and being able to serve the animals. So I think that is a very meaningful work that we are all doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love how you share that this desire, this longing to understand and to feel into where your beloved pet is in her journey. And it feels like there was a part of you that was really resisting the belief that just because her body is dead, that connection that I felt with her is severed. It's no longer
Mm,
accessible to me. And I feel like so many people do come to animal communication because what their head says they know and what they feel is no
mm,
longer like there's a disconnect there. And I love that you were so proactive about searching for answers. I feel like in this culture that we live in, the grief process we go through when our pets pass is becoming more recognized and
mm,
is being given more respect. But a lot of times we still have to kind of suffer in private. We don't feel like we can be as open. And sometimes we don't realize it at the time because we're just grieving. But that animal has given us such a
mm.
precious gift in opening this new door that we didn't even realize was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally
So,
agree. And
so shit.
it's even
Yeah. Go ahead.
harder for guys, Shannon. It's really hard
Yeah.
for guys to, to you tell a guy that, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. These are not things that, as a guy we are brought up with. You're
True.
taught that, especially here in Asia, hey, guys shouldn't be crying. You shouldn't be showing your vulnerable side to others. And, there's a lot of emotions that we have to learn how to process it. And one of the best way I found out is really through engaging an animal communicator, right? They're able to share with you how your pet is doing, and it gives you a sense of relief. And for most owners, it's a very comforting feeling, because we bring them a message that, hey, this is not the end of the journey. This is a temporary break that you and your fur kid is having. One day when it's your turn to pass, you will still reunite with them over at the bridge. So this is really just a temporary goodbye. And I love to tell my clients that don't worry, your pet has simply went ahead of you to go to the bridge, to check out the place, and they'll be the first one to welcome you when it's your turn to cross over.
It's kind of makes death kind of like exciting instead of scary, right? I mean, because
Yeah,
I feel like that
exactly.
you're so right. Like culturally, especially, I mean, animal communication is a female dominated field, at least as far as we know. I have certainly been on a hunt to showcase as much diversity because it's out there. It's just a little more difficult sometimes to access it, to find it. But if there's one barrier that feels like it's kind of universal, regardless of our gender or our age or our ethnicity or our background, it's this fear factor associated with death. It's like, and
Yes.
if the stoicism, the barrier against showing vulnerability, against crying, against opening up is strong in everyday life for men in particular, it feels like even more so when it comes to death. And so I feel like, do you find that sometimes your clients, that's one of the reasons they choose you? It's like because guys feel like they can actually talk to you and you've kind of paved the way for them to also open
Yes,
up.
yep, yep, yeah, really, you're absolutely right. So, as a guy, I think sometimes they may find it comfortable that, hey,
Yeah.
this person is going through the exact same journey as me. Maybe I can get a point or two. I can get some
Mhm.
guidance and tips from him, how he processed that emotion, that grief. How does he move on, there, because there's gonna be days that you wake up and you realize that your pet is no longer beside you
Yeah.
and you feel this very empty feeling on the inside. So how do you learn to work with this emptiness, this uncomfortable feeling that is on the inside of you, right? There are some owners that are so affected that they don't have the energy, the motivation to get any work done. So they can be lying on the bed the whole day and just wanting to be in that very sad mode. "Ah, I don't want to do anything. I just want to just rest." So how do we, get the messages from the fur kit to encourage them, to get them to pick up all these pieces and move on with their life? So I think what I like to do, whether is it a male or a female, it's I want to get motivations and empowering messages from the pets to encourage their owners, to help them to move on with this journey called life.
Well, that's a beautiful mission. And it strikes me as I'm thinking back through some of my clients, how many of my human clients have said to me that they don't have anyone else to really talk to and open up to about how they really feel, and they're kind of hiding their grief or their that the what you just said is so right on, like the lack of motivation to move on. It's like there have been days when my little parrot Pearl is the only thing. My dad passed last year, and let me tell you, there were many days I did not want to get out of bed.
Mm,
And then I would
right.
hear his cute little chirp, and before I even knew it, it would be like, okay, I'm up. And so, you're so right. Hearing from the animal, and they somehow just know exactly what to say. That
And
that
one
in
very
it.
important point for
Hmm.
a communicator, a lot of times when, as pet owners, as we are grieving, we try to share this grief, this sadness. We want to express it out maybe to the people that's closest to us, like your family and your friends. And more often than not, sometimes some people, even though they have very good intentions, they will say comments like, "Well, it's just a pet. Moved on,
Yeah,
it's just a dog or it's just a
yeah,
cat. Why are you crying so much?" And this is the last thing that we want to hear from the people closest to us. So some people just can't understand or comprehend how much our fur kids and our pets mean to us, and they may say something hurtful during this period of time, and that kind of get us into a not so good state as well. We're like, "Hey, I'm supposed to come
yeah,
to you. You're supposed to be my listening ear, but you're just brushing everything aside, or you're just like playing it down. Hey, don't worry, it's just a dog. It's just a few years." And
yeah.
these are things that non-pet owners or people that don't like animals, they cannot comprehend. So talking to a communicator really helps because we can
Mhm.
fully empathize with the pet owner, this grief journey that they are going through, and we celebrate with them, right? Because the pets will be telling us about their journey together, how they created happy memories, and this journey that they have with their pet owners. So yeah, talking to an ML communicator is really good.
And we wear lots of different hats. The grief,
Yeah.
and the comfort, and the and truly also to communicate the sense of wonder and curiosity and even excitement that death continues the journey in a new way. And in some ways, it often feels like the animal goes ahead to ease the fear factor of, oh my gosh, someday that's going to be me crossing the bridge,
Yeah.
and what is it going to be like, and who will be there, like you said earlier. And so we can get a glimpse through our
Mhm.
animals experiences to maybe lessen our fear of our own passing, help us to prepare, and also just recognize that you touched on empathy, which, of course, at least in my own experience, that's the central channel through which interspecies communication happens. It's
Yes.
it's it's a, it's a fine line between talking about interspecies empathy and anthropomorphism, but the truth is that we only have our human perspective to bring to the table. And how do we turn
Mhm.
that for good? How do we use that for good to realize we truly are more alike than different in the ways that matter most. So I want to chat with you a little bit because there are a lot of folks who, we start out in this journey. I mean, it wasn't so long ago when I was like, I remember meditating one morning and hearing the words, "You are an animal sensitive and intuitive." And I thought, that's fascinating, but I don't know what that means. And I, like
Yeah, yeah.
you, luckily had a mentor that I could go to. And in this particular case, I just asked her, I said, "What does that mean?" And she said, "Oh, animal communication. That's a brilliant career choice for you." And I was like, "Whoa,
Wow.
wait a minute. I thought I thought I
Cool.
was doing this other thing." Yeah. And so we come to this work and it's bright, shiny, and new, and it's very exciting. And then we get into it and we realize it's also very serious. It can be full of
Mm,
grief and heartache
I
and
see.
difficult choices. And it's a hat that we wear with the utmost respect and humility, because this animal and this human are inviting us to a conversation about that animal's quality of life. And so
Yeah.
you and I were chatting a little bit before I pressed record today about, what happens when an animal shares a need, maybe, or an
Mm,
unmet need, or a desire, or
mhm,
they're lonely, or they don't like their food, or they don't feel well, or there's something going on in the home, maybe with
mm,
their person or with their human family that is distressing to them. And then we translate and offer that message from the pet, and then the human comes back to us and says, "Well, what do I do about it?" And kind of
mm.
navigate, like, how it's, because it is serious. It's wonderful work. It is exciting. And these are, joyful conversations that I have with my fellow
Yeah.
communicators. But it's important to emphasize that this is serious stuff. We're we're
Mm.
we're being invited to a very intimate conversation with two beings
Yeah, Shannon,
who, you know,
you're so
yeah.
right, because I always tell my students that your words contain life and death. There's so much power in the words of an animal communicator. And I always remind my students and my new students the same thing. Be mindful of your speech. You can be right, but the way you deliver the message across can be very hurtful as well. Okay, so there's this theory that I like to say, if animal communication is 100% skill, 50% is about getting that message from the animal. Another 50% is how do you deliver this
Mm.
message in a very compassionate or in a very kind manner to the owners. Sometimes some pets will say, "Oh, why is my owner?" So there's this example that my student we were in Malaysia recently. So she was sharing with me that she was talking to a dog, and then the dog was saying, "My owner is very stupid. Why is she doing so much funny stuff at home?" So there's a lot of judgment in the animal towards the pet owner. And then I was trying to tell my student that, well, this is a conversation that you have with the animal. You do not need to let
Yeah.
the owner know that she is stupid, according to the
Yeah.
pet's perspective. Yeah. So you can hear 100%, but do you necessarily have to deliver everything like as it is like 100% pure. My owner is why is my owner so silly? Why is my owner so fat? These are words that has a lot of aggression and a lot of hurt in them. And I don't think as an owner, you want to hear things like that as well. So that's something that we have to be very mindful of. Okay, you can be the best communicator. You can hear very clearly from the animals, but please be mindful. Let me give you a very real example. Sometimes,
Yes.
when an animal is having palliative care, they are towards their end of life, they are in pain, they are suffering, they are getting weaker and weaker by the day, right? Sometimes owner will engage a communicator and then they will ask this question, well, do you need us to help you to cross over? Meaning, do you need us to euthanize you? Or do you prefer to go on your own?
Mhm.
Okay, so that is a very, very common question that most communicators they will get. So usually my take on this is we don't make a decision for the animal because there is a small probability that you can hear wrongly, right? So let's say if the animal say I want to live for another few more days, but you thought that hey, the animal is going to go. So you say go, but actually the animal do not want to go yet, right? So usually as owners, they ask questions like, hey, is my pet ready to go? Do I help them make the decision to cross over or do they go by themselves in a peaceful manner? Okay, so for questions like this, usually I would describe to them how the animal is feeling. I will
Mm.
give this decision making back to the owner. You make the decision yourself because this is your pet. You are the guardian. I can only share with you what your pet is currently experiencing in his or her body. And then you gauge for yourself, do you think it's really very bad? If you think that is really very bad, you need to make the decision to euthanize, you go ahead and do it, right? But you will not one day come back and go and tell everybody around you, well, my communicator say that my dog is ready to
Yeah.
go, and then we decided to put him down. So you shift that responsibility to the owner. Oh, I'm just listening to the communicator because the communicator spoke to my animal, and this is what they say, right? So we don't want to be the reason to let people make that decision because when it comes to decision making sometimes we get very fearful. We just want to like, hey, he asked me, she asked me to do this, he asked me to do that, and we don't want to make the decision. We rather listen to someone else give us the instruction, right? So usually I will give this decision making power back to the owner by sharing with them, hey, this is what your pet is currently feeling. A little bit of pain but still manageable, and sometimes there are some cases where they have like continuous like seizures. And for cases like that, I may be telling the owner, well, he's physically very tired. Like constant
Yeah.
seizure, there's a lot of muscle ache. And I leave the decision to the owner. Do you think that is okay? If you think it's okay, we can continue with some palliative care pain management. Or let's say if you think that it's not okay, then you might want to assist this animal to cross over, right? So I give back this
Yes.
question, this decision making back to the owner. And
This.
we want to say it in a very compassionate manner. So like what I mentioned earlier, you can be right, but the way you deliver the message, we must always remember to be empathic. We don't want to be very curt and very straightforward. Sometimes some people cannot take it, right? Yeah. Do you
Well,
have
it's
similar
it's
issues like
absolutely.
in
There's, there are ways to say things that can shut down the conversation that can actually destroy trust and
yes.
disrespect the level of intimacy that this human and this animal, they're opening up their inner worlds to, they're inviting somebody to the conversation that in most cases, if they know us at all, it's very in a very limited capacity. And so there's a lot of humility, and especially when you realize that the hat you're wearing serves one purpose and one purpose only. For me, I when I'm wearing my animal communicator hat, my job is essentially as an interspecies translator. And of course, there's, the delicacy of the translation is part of the art and the skill, and really tuning in at a deeper and deeper level to and through that empathy channel. And if the animal shares a message in a specific way and it does come across as a little curt or a little judgy, to go back to that animal and say, I don't think your human is going to be able to hear you. Is there another way that I can frame that, or can you give me some more
Mm,
information, to help
yes.
me understand, so that I make sure that I give the most accurate translation? And then, that other piece of it is recognizing there are other folks on that animal's, or there should be other folks on that animal's holistic whole pet care team, like, let's say, a
Mm,
veterinarian, or perhaps a pet death doula, or a hospice worker, or compassionate euthanasia team. And so it really does, if that human in the mix needs more information, about, okay, well, here's what the animal shared through the communicator. They've got some muscle pains, they're very tired, but then you gather some more information. gathered that, and that's part of being a guardian, is pulling the whole picture together. We can add a we're one facet of the bigger
Yes.
picture, but certainly, and that's, it's like, that's the difficult part of, we love our animals, we want animals in our lives, and then shoot, we have to make tough decisions. And so, I
Yeah.
love that you're so focused with your students as well as in your own practice, in your own business, to be able to say, wait a minute, what role am I playing? What, of course, you're also a
Mm,
Reiki master, and that's a different hat. And
mm,
you mentioned a little bit earlier about, does the animal need, or want, or would it be appropriate to continue offering palliative care? But then it's like, if you decide to put your Reiki hat on and shift
mm.
into offering, some calm and some easing of physical or emotional pain and that sort of, that's a different hat. And it's like, so
Yeah.
really guiding the animals human to recognize, I'm not just going to go ask the first person that I talk to, what should I do? It's about, no, why don't you go talk to the veterinarian? Why don't you, let's keep gathering information from so many different perspectives to get the biggest and the best picture of what's going on in this animal's world right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you brought up a very, very good point that I really had it very close to my heart. You know,
Mm.
in the work that we do, sometimes veterinarians, sometimes can be dog trainer or behaviorists, they may not really understand or even appreciate the things that we do.
This
More
is true.
often than not, they may just brush it off and say, these are just hocus pocus. I'm only very going to go with the science. I'm a very scientific person. I only go with the data. I go with the facts, right? So, what we want to do here in Singapore is we want to raise the standard of animal communicators. That's why we want to do it in a very focused, very compassionate, and very whole as a whole, including your vet team and everything. Because I do know of some owners that are very involved in communicators, and they may go to the vet and say, well, I don't want to do this surgery, for example, pyometra, which is a life-threatening disease, right? So some pet owner will say, well, I'm not going to do this surgery for my pet, or I'm not going to sterilize my animal because my pets do not like it, and they are afraid to stay in a hospital. And then the vet will ask them, how do you know that? Oh, because I spoke to a communicator,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes all
Yay.
these
Yeah.
little stories, they make the vet very upset with the work that we are doing. So we want to always remind ourselves to conduct ourselves in a very professional manner, so that people, this is a profession, right? We are doing it full time. This is what we do to help people, is our mission. So we also want people around us to see the value that we are adding onto the animal's life. And one of the best way we can do it is how we conduct ourselves, not just the way we look, not just the way we speak, but how do we portray or bring animal communication to others. Yeah, so learning to do it in a very professional manner really plays a part. Yeah.
Huge, huge to really, and it requires that we really have to take what we do seriously.
Yeah.
It's not that we lose the bright, shiny feeling of, sparkly, wonderful new toys that we have to play with. And I mean, for me at first, when I first started communicating with the animals, I felt like I was discovering all these like cool bells and whistles inside of my human system that I didn't even know were there. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And that's why, I'm, I sometimes seem to know things that I don't know how I know, or like I'm picking up things from other
Mm,
people that I don't understand, or that other people around me aren't reflecting. It's like just learning how the empathy channel works, learning how intuition works, but then kind of taking the shine off and kind of realizing I need to take what I do with as much
mm,
seriousness as if I was a veterinarian or a dog
yes.
trainer or an end of life doula. It deserves that amount because like what you said right at the beginning, our words are everything. The words that we choose, it's like
Mm,
we the conversation is the most powerful part of anything that happens in that animal's life. So in some
Yes.
ways, I feel like we're the most, and we kind of are the most because we're facilitating conversation beyond the data,
Mm,
beyond what meets the eye, beyond the opinions of others, because that's another wonderful thing that we
yes.
human animals love to do is go scurry around and ask everybody around us, well, what do you think I should do? And it's like we've got to go beyond
Yeah.
that to have this intimate one-to-one conversation that
Mm,
requires this level of honesty that can be hard to reach, it really, even
yes.
within ourselves, especially when it's our own animal. So I want to ask you, because
Mm,
at some point in your journey you moved from being mentored yourself and having your teacher and your mentor. You became a professional communicator, and then you decided that you were going to transition into a mentor role. And I'm curious kind of
yes.
how you knew that it was time for you. And because that's a
Mm,
brave, bold move, especially because our field is still so young. Like, so the work that you and I are doing as teachers now, it's like in a weird way, it's kind of like it's shaping the field itself as we grow. And
yeah.
so it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's something to take seriously. So I'm curious, like, how did you know that it was
You
time?
know, the thing is, I never knew that it was time. It is just that instinctively I felt that, hey, this is the right time to start a school to help people. So, if you ask me, hey, when at the start of your journey, do you have like a 5-year plan? Do you have a 10-year plan? The answer is no. Okay, so what happened was I'm doing communicating on a daily basis, right? So I realized that, it reaches a point that I realized that I only have so much time on a daily basis. I can be very good at what I'm doing. Okay, I'm very good a very good communicator, but my time is limited. There's only so much clients that I can work with on a daily basis, and I need my break as well. So during my breaks, what's going to happen to the animals? You know? So that kind of got me thinking and thinking, and then, a thought just came in. Hey, you should start to train more like-minded people. So when you have 10 very capable communicators, each one can help 10 animals, you have 100 animals that is being held on a daily basis versus me doing just 10 animals for a day,
Yeah.
for example. So
Yeah.
that got me very excited. I'm like, hey, that is a very strong motivation for me to want to come out to run courses to make sure that more people are trained so that more animals can be helped.
Be helped.
Okay, so that was my whole intention of starting the school. And even before we start the school, I want to make sure that I'm very qualified to teach. So I actually took at least 1 to 2 years to go and get all the professional training certification that is required. What is adult learning? How do I structure my lesson in a very systematic way, right? So that anybody, literally anybody, even accountants, engineers, people who are very logical, they're able to pick up this skill very quickly and or very easily, so to say. So I took like 1, 2 years to really get myself ready and prepared. So like what you mentioned, going for a lot of credential certification so that I have the necessary knowledge and experience and I can gel everything together to come up with a course that can really benefit the learners. So that was how we started, just conducting workshops. And then, we're supposed to end it as that. But I realized that, a lot of time people come for workshops and then after the workshop, they get very excited and they started going around practicing. And shortly after, the fire will just die down. And then, it's like a trend. Communication becomes a trend. There are some months that you really feel like doing it. There are some months that you give reasons like, yeah, I'm very busy with my family, with my kids, with my work. I got no time to do communication. So I started noticing this trend that, it comes up and down. So we decided to have a community and then I become like a mentor so that I can mentor the students on a monthly basis to help them, to remind them in a way that, hey, you need to practice at least once a month. That's like the minimum because this is a skill set that we have. It's like a muscle. If you're not training your muscle, how do you get better? Right? So we have this community that we get people to practice on a monthly basis. We have a lot of gatherings, and then I make myself a mentor, like very available to them. So if they have any questions, they can come to me and I'll be there to guide them. Yeah. So this is how the school started.
I mean, it's really remarkable the care and again, the seriousness with which you took. And I love how
Mm,
intuition works. It's like maybe there are some folks listening to this right now going, man, I can really relate to what he just said about I'm so busy and will I ever have time to learn? And one thing I want to share is that, when we allow our intuition to have a seat at the table, it's like what you're talking about, this little idea just dropped into your awareness. Hey, Ezekiel, you should start a school. And this open channel that you developed through your animal communication practice, I feel like perhaps that was what gave you the ears to hear it and not just brush it off like, oh yeah, whatever, that's sure, ha ha ha. But to say, oh, that feels like my intuition talking to me. That feels like an idea
mm,
from the animals coming to me
yes.
saying, you could help more of us if you were willing to, take a look at this idea more seriously. And that is where, when I'm talking to folks who don't really understand what I do or why I would want to do it, and I say, becoming a better human animal is at the root of learning interspecies communications. Like you learn
Yes.
how I feel like every student that I work with, they come away, whether they want to do it professionally or they want to just be able to talk with their own animals with more confidence and accuracy, or maybe volunteer with animals is another great use for it. It's like ultimately it improves all your relationships, no matter
Yes.
what species. It's like we become more aware of how we're communicating with everyone and
Yeah.
become better able to refine the messages that we're sending out. Just what you were sharing about, take care with your words. 50% is the skill and the discipline and the practice, and 50% is the delivery. Let's talk about your delivery. Let's talk about, and maybe that's shutting you down in your conversations with your partner, or with your boss, or with your colleagues, or with your kids, or with their teachers, or whoever it is. And so it's like, we're always going to benefit even once a month.
Yes.
It's like we get a lot more than we give. We're going to receive a lot more than even the investment we put into it. And I feel like this very Western mindset of, competition and market share, et cetera, it's not relevant when it comes to our field, because
Mm,
even if
yes.
every single human learned how to communicate across species boundaries and had a conversation with at least one animal every day, there would still be a line. There would
Yeah.
still
It
be
is
so
really
many
like a
animals
scarcity
that would
mindset.
never. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's like if you're
Well,
listening to this right now, or you're watching this and you're interested and you're curious, understand there's a place for you. You don't have to worry about there's not enough business if you want, it's like you're always going to have clients who want to talk to you.
yeah. Exactly. It's really about having abundance because think about it, there are owners with dogs, there are owners with cats, there are rabbits out there are hamsters, and there's feathered animals. There's like so many different categories of fur kits that you can talk to. So there is really more than enough for everybody.
For
So you don't have to
everyone.
worry, right? Hey, everybody's going only after the dog. Okay, I mean, here in Asia, there are some that
Mhm.
likes to talk to just the dogs. There are some that just like to talk to the cats. Very breed or animal specific. For me, it's a very wide range. We even talk
Mhm.
to like turtles and tortoise, right, and ostriches as well. So,
I love
like
it.
what Shannon mentioned, there is really a abundance of animals for you to work with, for you to be of service to. So please come and learn this skill because it's really very beneficial. You really learn a lot of life lessons.
Mhm.
Like what she mentioned, sometimes, towards the end of life, the animal tell you things like, hey, tell my owner I love them a lot, or,
Yeah.
they may say things like, oh, I'm never away, I'm just a thought away. I'm just a thought away. We are still
Yeah.
very much connected. Things like that
Yeah.
kind of gives you a lot of assurance as well because you are on this journey. And when it's your pet's turn to go, you can expect it to be something similar. So there's not much fear because we kind of have, like what you mentioned, a glimpse of how the end will look like
Yeah.
by hearing from them, or you hear of animals that are at the bridge. They'll tell you things like, oh, I'm very happy here, I'm playing. They tell you about their daily activities. So, I'm doing this, I'm learning stuff, and they share with you their learnings. And, that really helps a lot.
It sure does. It sure does. And it feels like, and a big part of it, and it was kind of implied in everything you were saying. And I loved what you shared about building a community because
Mm,
ultimately, it's difficult, it can be difficult to visualize if you're interested in animal communication, but then you look around in your current circle in your world and you're like, wow, nobody is going to understand what I'm doing. And I'm going to be like this
yes,
lone wolf, and everybody's going to be like, okay, she's kind of gone off the deep end, or he's kind of like a little woo out there. But recognize and understand that when you come towards something you're super interested in, or curious about, you're joining a new community. It's all of
yes,
us. We happen
absolutely.
to think we're
Yeah.
pretty fun. And so you will meet, you'll make new friends. You'll meet new people who share your
Exactly.
interests and who get it and who are passionate and love to talk about this stuff. And so it's like you're gaining access to a whole new group of people that you might just find out these are the coolest people that you've met yet. And so just
Absolutely.
giving yourself permission
Mm,
in an open-ended way to get curious, to have an experience. Um, and this is the part, of course, of the podcast where I always like to invite our guests to share a little bit about how they can experience animal communication with you and where should
mm.
they start, because you've got a lot of different offerings and you teach in a lot of different
Yeah.
areas. So what would you recommend for somebody who's just maybe brand new, never even done it before? Like, where should they start with you?
Okay, so if you're a listener that has never done any spiritual or new age like meditation or any kind of
Mhm.
new age work before, my recommendation for you is to go to our Facebook page, Animal Communication and Healing Academy. Okay, we have one introductory class for people just like us, people who cannot meditate. For me, for once, I cannot meditate. I'll fall asleep within 10 minutes. So usually at the start of class, I will tell my students, don't worry, the max we're gonna do is 5 minutes, so you'll be fine. Okay, so we have an introductory class whereby we do Reiki as well. So it's actually animal Reiki. So we teach the students how to send energy healing to the fur kids, and we'll do a little bit of basic communication, like sensing their emotions as well as their physical discomfort. Now, why do I suggest that you start with healing? Let me give you an example. Okay, and imagine today you learn how to communicate with animals, and you are talking to your own pet, and your pet tell you, "Hey, owner, I'm having stomach pain. Can you bring me to the vet?" You know, then what you need to do is you bring the animal to the vet, and then the first thing the doctor is going to ask you is, why are you here? And then you tell the doctor, well, doctor, I talked to my animal and he or she is telling me that they are having a stomach pain. Can you prescribe some stomach medication to them? The doctor is going to look at you with that, whoa, what's happening to this person? It's all over the world. Yeah. So versus, let's say if you learn how to do energy healing on yourself, on your this skill on energy healing. Let's say if your animal tell you he's uncomfortable, you can have the option of bring to the vet as well as complementing it with energy work so that the recovery can be faster. So there is something that you can do to empower yourself. Okay. A lot of times when animals are sick owners become very helpless. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, what can we do? I can only pray. I can only wish for the better. I can only wish that the medicine help. Right? There's
Yeah.
nothing on you that you can do to support your animal other than just being there looking. Right? But
Yeah.
let's say if you learn how to do energy healing work, you are able to send energy to the circuit to support them, to like what you mentioned, to bring them calm and comfort, right,
Mhm.
during this period. So it empowers you to be able to do something for your pet. Okay, so if you're listening for the first time, I will encourage you to go and sign up for this course. It's called Energy Healing, Animals Energy Healing. Yeah, that is a really good start for beginners. And then once you learn how to open up yourself to send and receive energy, you learn how to sense discomfort, then you can progress on to our communication workshop. And that's where you start to see, you have deeper conversations. Yeah, so it's really a baby, taking baby steps. You will definitely get there, right? Some people learn it very fast, almost on an instant basis. Some people just need a little bit more time to digest the steps, the concepts, and then they have to practice it themselves for a while before they really get a hang of it. So always remember, animal communication and energy healing work is like training a muscle that you have never used your entire life. So if it's something that you have never used before, you need to give it time. All right? You must have the patience for it to grow, for it to develop. Is it going to be an easy process? More often than not, it's not. Okay, there are going to be days that you have blocks. Oh, I think I got it wrong. I've been getting it wrong consecutively for 3 to 5 times. Am I cut out for this? Maybe I'm not meant to be a communicator. Okay, there's going to be days like this, and I just want to encourage you. Remind yourself why you started on this journey. Your why is very important, and it will keep you going even when you feel very discouraged. And it can also help you with burnouts for the very seasoned communicators that's listening in, right? Sometimes we get so overwhelmed, we want to help so many animals that we burn ourselves out. And it's at this
This is
point
true.
that you want to bring yourself back and just tell yourself, hey, why do I start this journey? If I cannot take care of myself, how can I help all the other animals?
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So your
And
why is so important.
the why is so important, and I love that you wrap Reiki into it.
Mm,
They came into my life at the same time. I really honestly can't separate them, although I know there are communicators and practitioners out there that view them as very, very separate. For me, the Reiki energy is always present, and it's a facilitator, and it's a channel opener. It feels like it's a very, and
yes.
it's a source of support. I love what I love most about what you're doing is that the Reiki energy not only is a support to the animal and empowers that human in the equation to give something to the animal, but the Reiki is also supporting them. Like it's also dialing
Correct.
down their anxiety, like because sometimes we get so amped up as pet parents, or animal guardians. It's like our anxiety is making our animal worse instead of better because we're so, freaked out or worried or sad or whatever's going on. And so it's like adding the energy healing piece into the mix right at the beginning gives some support to both that human and their animal right away, and just
Yeah.
gives, and I feel honestly Reiki really, it smooths some of the rough edges and gives a gift of patience, a gift of seeing the bigger picture,
Mhm.
a gift of, for those who want to progress really rapidly, the gift of a quicker, maybe a less steep learning curve. So, Ezekiel,
Mm.
beautiful gift to chat with you today. Thank you so much for rearranging your schedule and making time for me early in your day, early in the morning for you, I know. Of course, for me here, it's night, and it's a lovely way to conclude my day is to have a conversation about my
Mm.
favorite subject. So again, you can, Ezekiel, you are at animalcommunications.sg. You also mentioned, be sure to put your Facebook page in the show notes. So if you're driving while you're listening, you don't have to write it down. we will put those in the notes, and you can just bookmark them when you have something to write with. And if you, our dear listeners and viewers, if you are joining us for the first time, just know that you're joining a community of folks who are passionate. It's a global community of folks that are passionate about interspecies communication and shared evolution. There are many more wonderful episodes where this one came from. If you're searching for a teacher, or you would like to work with a communicator, if you want to add talk to my animal to your bucket list, this is it's a great resource for you. The episodes, of course, are all free and ad free as well. And so you can visit us at animallovelanguages.com/podcast, and you'll find links to hopefully all of your favorite streaming services, as well as our YouTube page. You can re-listen to today's episode. Ezekiel has given such a good framework for how to approach interspecies communication, learning and teaching with profound humility and respect for all of life. And so it's my joy to be your hostess. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. And please join us again next week for another wonderful episode of Let's Talk to Animals. All right, sending you all of our love. Ezekiel, thank you again for being here. It's
Thank you,
such a wonderful
Shannon.
conversation. And
Yeah.
sending you all our love, and bye for now.